I'm gonna turn this up. This is my jam right now. Yeah. Are you gonna
All
play
right, man.
play it all the way through? I like let it breathe. This is the first time we get to hear it. I'm excited. Like, woo. I like the. Yeah.
Nice. All right, are you live, man?
I'm live.
Shit, you ready to do this, Dan?
I've been ready. I've been ready. This is it, man. Welcome to what we call Prof Talk After Hours. I am.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Sean Clavel.
And I'm Kevin Cotto. Rhymes with avocado.
Pleasure. So, welcome to Prof Talk After Hours. We have two professors here from Arizona Western College, and I'll let Kevin explain what this is. This is kind of his baby. So, what is this?
Yeah, so this is a kind of informal space where we hoped students or whoever's tuning in would get to know faculty across the college a little bit better and maybe talk about our specializations and what we're interested in, what we're reading, both academically and professionally, and maybe personally.
Cool. This is awesome. So it's a pleasure to be here. Again, we're both professors here from Arizona Western College. I'm in the science division. I teach anatomy and physiology, and so I have a background in physical therapy, so my degree is in physical therapy, and so it's exciting to be here. Kevin?
Yeah, I teach in the communications department, primarily writing is what I'm doing. So our goal is, or at least my goal, is to help students write more effectively in whatever genres are coming their way, whether those are academic papers or something out in the real world.
Beautiful. This is cool, man. This is cool. So in introductions, is there anything we want to kind of go over? Anyone you want to talk about in terms of introductions or about yourself or anything in terms of like what we want to get into?
Yeah, I guess maybe we'll start with a little bit of some fun facts about us. Maybe what brought us to AWC and see where we go from there.
Yeah. So where do we start? You want to start with me?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Sean.
Oh,
what are
man.
some fun facts?
Fun facts. I am a Arizona kid, so I was born in Staten Island, New York, but I was raised in Arizona since I was 8 years old. Lived in Chandler, Arizona. Loved Chandler, Arizona. Went and got a degree up at Northern Arizona University, Flagstaff, Arizona. So been up to Flagstaff all the way back down to Yuma, right? So now we're both here teaching in Yuma, Arizona. So I've been from tip to tip of the state here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah.
But Arizona, right? Arizona raised.
Nice. Yeah, I guess I originally hail from the Pacific Northwest in Washington State, and permanent head damage, or I guess what some people call a PhD or PhD program, is what brought me to Arizona. And prior to that, I was working at a Japanese university where I taught English and applied linguistics.
Nice.
So it's a pretty big switch. I went from one type of weather in the summer that is, I guess, a type of hell to a different type of hell. So Japan summers are hot-ish, not as hot as here in Arizona, but maybe we'll get up to 95. But the humidity is the killer there. So if there's anyone from the south, I think that's familiar territory. And then moved to Arizona and been here for a few years now, and I think I can tell the difference between 110 and 105.
Yeah.
I think I'm acclimating a little bit.
I usually say like after it hits it, after about 100 degrees is when the sun starts to hurt on your skin. That's when that's the breaking point for me.
Feel the burn.
Nice. So any other interest outside of academics here? So I do have an idea that you have an endeavor in the next couple of weeks, but any other interests in the next couple? Outside of academics.
Yeah. So outside of academics, I thought that going into the academy would grant us some sort of freedom, but it turns out that work-life balance has become more blurred than I thought it would before coming into it. But in this free time that we try to save for ourselves, in a previous life, I was the executive chef of a small bistro and still enjoy cooking. So that's one thing. And over the last year, I picked up a new hobby. I run now.
How
I never,
like
and
how often? How much do you run? Like running,
well,
right? Yeah, like
yeah,
cool. Right, yeah. Give me an idea of like what that looks like. What does running look like? What you get out there and run how much?
sure. I mean, like 1 year ago, I could barely, I couldn't, like run continuously a mile. Like it was a challenge.
Okay. Yeah.
Jog a little bit, walk a little bit, run a little bit, and fast forward to now. And this morning, I went out for a 6 mile speed work. Did some mile repeats. Got, I think I was doing about seven-ish minute mile repeats, about
Ouch.
3 minutes in between. So
Ouch, man. That's some burning in the thighs. Wow.
yeah,
So, running now. So the nice endeavor in running, and so getting into the running. What anything that brought you into running, in per se, or just getting into like the exercise routine?
yeah. So previously, when I was in graduate school 1.0, getting a master's in teaching English to speakers of other languages and applied linguistics, I had a buddy of mine, and we went to the gym pretty frequently. It's usually 5, 6 times a week. So just pumping iron. And then I had kind of a lull in that. I picked it up a little bit when I was in Japan. And when the first wave hit, the gym was no longer a very viable option. And I had just gone in for a routine checkup and almost tipped the scales at 200 pounds, or I think I was a little bit under 90 kilos. And that was like the most I've ever weighed in my life. And went, whoa,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I need to go to the gym or not. And so I downloaded an app called Couch to 5K and followed its training plan.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. And so, give me an idea of the furthest you plan to run, or yeah, what's the furthest like you plan to get out there and work?
Yeah, it's a great question. In a couple of weeks, I am attempting to run a marathon. So
Wow.
26.2
Point two
miles.
miles. Good night. 26.2 miles in Endeavor.
Good night.
I know, right? That's intense. That's intense. So, give me an idea of what the training looked like leading up to a marathon. What, like, how much are you running over the course of maybe like a week, or maybe even how long are you running in one period of time too?
Yeah, so I took a leaf out of your playbook a little bit. So for people out there, Sean has also completed a handful of marathons and halves, so he's no stranger to the game. Uh,
I wouldn't say that they're worth it. No, I'm kidding. No, I have. I've run 3 marathons, 2 half marathons, and side note, the last marathon I ran was 10 years ago. As I look at the plaque over here on the wall, yeah, about 10 years ago. So again, I'm not running out there anytime soon, but I do applaud you for doing so. And so yeah, give me an idea of like what training looked like. Like what are you running in the course of a week or maybe even a day?
yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't really have a training plan per se for the marathon. It was just over the course of the year. I kept running at first. I ran every single day for about a month and a half. And the most I ever ran in that period was maybe 3 or 4 miles. So it wasn't enough to really break down and require, like a rest day for recovery. And as the mileage increased per week, I found myself in maybe from September to mid-December, averaging about 45 or 50 miles in a week.
Wow.
And it was at that point where it's like, oh, well, I think that's enough-ish to do a marathon. And that's when I signed up.
Okay, so was it your intention in the beginning, like when you initiated this running program, to run a marathon, or was it something that like you came across and were, hey, I think I can run a marathon. Let me sign up for it.
Yeah, from the get-go, it was sort of a dream. Like maybe one day I'll build up enough endurance to attempt a marathon.
Right.
I
Okay.
didn't think that it would be this soon. But according to Professor Google,
Right.
45 or 50 miles isn't too much of a transition to begin a short
Sure.
training or more focused training period for a marathon. So in a couple of weeks, we'll find
Wow. And so,
out.
what's the longest you've run, like in one bout?
In one go, I went 19 miles.
Okay. What did that feel like? Like, what is the experience of 19 miles? Like, are you crying? Are you crawling? Like, what does that look like or
It
feel
was
like?
Yeah, so it was a really good experience actually. The first time I was going for 20 miles, it didn't work very well. I ended up bonking, so I just depleted glycogen, and it's like, oh, I think I'm going to crawl home now.
Really?
And so yeah,
Did you
it was
call
a
an
horrible.
Uber?
I was very tempted. I was very tempted. Everything hurt, and I was like, wow, it hurts to walk. I got home. It's like it hurts to stand. It hurts to lay down. It hurts to
Ouch.
sit.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, and so I was more strategic in my second attempt. I kind of learned from my previous failures. So I was 5 miles in. I took a gel,
Okay.
and I think there are about 22 grams of carbs in that gel. And every 3 miles or 4 miles ish, I would take another gel. So usually when I'm going for like a 10 or 15 mile run, I don't need to take a gel and I'll just be fine. But in this case, I'm like, okay, we're going for 20 miles. I was a mile off. I was a little bit sad about my route calculation.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was more strategic in saying, okay, in order not to bonk, I'm going to start putting carbs into my system so that when I get to the 15th mile, the 16th mile, I'm not going to have that horrible feeling.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
So that was a good training and learning experience. But for the muscles, I mean, you at maybe 16 or 17, your
Wow.
legs just they hurt. Your muscles are fatigued, and it was a largely a mental game for me. Just put one foot in front of the other.
Wow. Yeah. And so, is there a certain time you're going for? 4 hours? Is that a goal, or is that like I know that's sometimes a like a nice reference point for some marathon runners, but do you have a goal in mind?
Yeah, the first goal, the very practical one, is to finish.
Finish.
Just
Yes. Yeah.
finish,
Right.
full stop.
Yep. Yep.
And then the sort of B part is okay, let's finish. And if we can get 4 hours or under, ideally under four, even if it's by a second, that would be pretty awesome. And then the sort of to the moon goal is under 350.
Wow. Cool. I want to record this for the record too. I want to ask, and I'm going to ask you this question
All
after
right.
you run the marathon. Do you anticipate running another more than one marathon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So after this, we'll ask you again. That'll be
Yeah.
fun. We'll see if that response is any different, right? But okay. Yeah. This is cool. This is really interesting. And so, can you explain maybe just one or two things that you maybe learned about the human, like about yourself, in terms of your body or something along those lines, through an experience like that, right? Like through this kind of experience of learning a new endeavor of exercise and really starting to take it to a new lifestyle.
Yeah. This is something that you introduced me to, and through kind of Kelly Starrett's stuff about pain. So, one of the things that I really enjoyed about weightlifting is the ability to kind of push yourself mentally. Like, you're able to still continue, like, your muscles will still work even though you think you're going to die. Like, you can still do one more lift or one more push. And I didn't ever think that this would also happen in running. It seems so obvious now, but that's one of the things that was attractive to me at the very beginning of running, where you had this tension between what your body is telling you and what actually your muscles are capable, like when they will fail and
Yeah.
no longer contract for you.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like that. So I'm just fascinated with the human movement, and that's kind of my forte. I just, whether it's either the biomechanics of it, right? What are the forces that are being applied through this? The physiology, the exercise physiology, like you kind of mentioned there, the fuels that are being utilized. At what point do you like start to lose that energy or that endurance factor based on that fuel consumption? And just even now we're even talking about a little bit of that neurological input, right, where the brain is this overriding structure that controls the entire system. And so you can even, right, pain is essentially just a chemical electrical signal sent to the brain and then reinforced by whatever information is around us. So yeah, it's a fascinating world to live in the movement system. Interesting.
Yeah. So let's throw this back at you.
Yeah, right.
What got you into your first marathon? Like, how'd you get into that?
This is probably a very selfish thing to say, but my dad ran a marathon. He ran the Kona Marathon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this was like in, I want to say around 2008, 2009. He ran it in Kona. And, you know, when your dad runs it, I'm like, I could do that. So I don't know. It was shortly thereafter where I just started training for a marathon. And it was a good endeavor because we both trained together, and essentially we ran the first marathon together. So that was really cool. Yeah, we were able to run that first marathon together. I took a year. I told myself I'd run another one. It was 2 years later that I ran my next one.
Okay.
You know, it's just one of those things. It took me a while to just jump right back into running again after a while. And so it was 2 years since my next one, and I think it was another 2 years for the other one. And I had a half marathon in between, and that was kind of like a fill-in. My dad had signed up for the half marathon. Kind of was getting some tendonitis of the knee and just couldn't finish it, so I just hopped in there and ran it. But yeah, it was more. Does it sound kind of selfish? Like, yeah, my dad ran it, so I figured.
No, that's really cool.
I had to at least try it. So, yeah, he was kind of that inspiration for it.
That's really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I had some friends around that were interested, that were runners as it was, and they gave me a book, and it was basically called Marathon, and it was just a step-by-step training, and really the idea behind it was to the miles that you run individually during the weekday should add up to one long run in the week. So if I ran 3 miles on a Tuesday, 3 miles on a Thursday, I'd try and run 6 miles on a Saturday or a Sunday over the weekend. And I mean, I guess one of the main limiting factors might be time, right? If you're out there running in the pavement for 4 hours, it's kind of a hard thing to do.
Yeah. When did you run your marathons?
Oh, like during what time of day, or like what time of year, or
like season wise?
I ran the PF Chang's Rock and Roll Marathon, which tends to be on the weekend of Martin Luther King Day, so like that January. Yeah, January 6th, I think this year it's 16th, 17th. And so that Monday's usually off, the marathon's on a Sunday, and so it's a good chance to, like, at least Monday, if you're work for a federal or something, most of the things are closed. So yeah, I was off that day. But yeah. So Sunday, and then there's no stairs. There won't. Let me just tell you that. Don't plan on going upstairs.
All
Just
right, duly noted.
Take the elevator. Stairs. Stairs are gonna look like mountains after the day after the marathon. But yeah, I encourage. I hope that, like, everybody. So what marathon and when are you doing it? Is it should be in town, right?
Yeah, so it's the Yuma Marathon, and it's at the end of the month.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Yuma Marathon, the Yuma Territorial Marathon, right? Yeah.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to seeing your seeing your outcome in this.
Yeah, we'll see. So crazy.
Yeah, right. It's kind of. Are you nervous?
A little bit, actually.
About what? Like, what is like the biggest? What are you like? Oh crap! Like, I can't believe this is gonna. That, like, what is the biggest fear? Like, the most dredging or scary thing?
That I didn't train enough. I'm
Uh,
in a tapering period right now,
yeah.
and it sounds really horrible for people who are just getting started into running, but I completely feel for you here. This week, I think I'm gonna be at 30 or maybe 35 miles this week, which is pretty low for me.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and over, from like Monday to Friday, usually I'll get in one or two, sometimes three 10-mile runs. And it's really crazy to be cutting back. And I know that there's a lot of literature that supports this, so that when you get to race day, you're on fresh legs and you're fully recovered. But still, there's just this little seed of doubt in the back of my mind, like, is it enough? Should I have done one more 20-mile run before I started to taper?
Yeah. And it doesn't get any better even up into race day, because when I was running, I mean, it's 10 years, even before COVID,
Yeah.
it was packed, and we'd be running and I'd be like 9 or 10 miles in, and you see guys that look more fit than you, and they're
Yeah.
keeled over, like hunched over a police car, like with medic there. And you're like, oh my God, am I going to finish this? Am I going to
Yeah.
finish this? Yeah. It's like, it doesn't get
Crazy.
that sense of urgency does not leave even up until during the race.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
So, since you've run a few marathons, you have a few marathons under your belt, some halves under your belt. Can you kind of walk us through the range of emotions you experienced?
All of them. Yeah.
All of them.
Sure. All of them. Like I mentioned, you got the fear there, that fear factor
Yeah.
where you're just, and even like you don't want to start off too much. I, okay, full disclosure here. From the
All right.
beginning, I overhydrated. And so
Oh.
and this is my first mistakes. Everybody does these first mistakes. I overhydrated. So
Hmm.
I peed every mile for probably the first 5 miles. Like there's a rest stop at every mile marker, and
Hmm.
I used it, and I even after a while I stopped using. I just ran over and peed in the bushes and stuff. But that kind of slagged me down a little bit. And as you continue to run, you start to listen to your music, and then
Yeah.
you kind of just rage run for like 20 minutes, and you're just angry. Not even 20 minutes, probably you probably just turn that into an hour and a half, hopefully, if you
Yeah.
can, if you got enough anger in you.
Just like translate that. Just pound the pavement.
Yes. And then you get into these other emotions. Probably by 18, 19,
Hmm.
I turned a corner, and there was he was a vet, and he was
Yeah.
running with a flag, like a 6-foot flag.
Oh, wow.
This thing is like you can tell that it's heavy, and
Yeah.
I am like literally already broken, and so I just start crying. So he's got an American flag, and he's carrying it, and I just start crying.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, like I'm weeping, and
Yeah.
so I carried that for like another mile or two. Uh, Disoriented. What are some of these emotions? Oh, just pure, sometimes just elation or bliss, right? Like that just comes with
Mm.
the runner's high after a while. You're just like, hey,
Yeah.
and that's probably right around your money spot, right around like 10, 11, 12, when you're like,
Yeah.
I could do this forever. And then you get to like 18, 19, 20, and you're like, I wish I was dead. And then it was like 18, 19, 20. All the funny things happened. Guy
Yeah.
passed me barefoot
Oh,
runner. Yeah.
wow.
And he just kind of
Wow.
thumping along, and
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, it seems right about now that this guy would just right on
Just-
past me barefoot. This dude's been doing it for who knows how long, but yeah, the
Wow.
running community is an interesting community. You can see that in terms of how enthusiastic they are about their, I don't know, shoes, equipment, those
Mm.
types of things. And so, I mean, you don't need all that stuff, essentially. Just get out there and enjoy your time and like move, right? Movement is better than no movement.
Mm.
More movement is better than less movement. It's the bare the bare bones of it, but they once you get into it, there's this enthusiasm that comes with it, and so it's fun to participate with that. But yeah, did I get all those emotions? I think I got them all.
Yeah.
It was a whirlwind. Trust me, it's
It was a
whirlwind.
whirlwind. I don't know. What was the I imagine in a rock and roll series like the PF Chang's rock and roll, there's a pretty large crowd that came out. Can you maybe
Oh,
talk a little bit about
oh, it's a
that?
blast. So this is right in the middle, right in the middle of the heart of Phoenix, and so
Ah, okay.
there's signs everywhere. At
Hmm.
least there's people cracking jokes like "Quit now, I'll give you a beer." Yeah, there's people just out there cheering you on. So that's another one that kind of encourages, like we talk about, like this pain. How do you
Hmm.
overcome that? And we've
Yeah.
seen some research that kind of suggests the uh, altering or kind of the changing of your uh, mindset or even your attention, excuse me, might be a better way to say that. If you
Mm-hmm.
change your attention away from what is that pain to
Hmm.
other things, like encouraging crowds, that kind of encourages me to run a little bit. So that whole course is primarily lined with people, everything from
Wow.
neighbors sitting in their front yard with their lawn chairs to
Yeah.
cheerleading teams out there that like donated for a mile or something like that. So it's really cool to see something like that in the community. So I'm hoping to be down there and kind of encourage people as they go too.
Right on.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be
I'll
at
be
the
there.
Yuma Territorial Marathon. I will not be running, but I will have bratwurst and I'll be offering people beer to quit. How about that?
All right. I might take you up on that if I finish,
Yeah,
replenish those carbohydrates, right?
definitely. Yep,
Get some
right.
more glycogen going.
Yeah,
Right on.
nice. So, man, this is the inaugural episode of our Prof Talk After Hours. What anything else we want to hit on?
Oh man. I mean, I think you know us pretty well. And if we go into like different fuel sources or talking about, all right, like let's say that I can get a continuous glucose monitor, to figure out like usually when you're past your lactate threshold, your glucose levels will go up because you're trying to like fuel yourself. And then like what does that look like when they go down, before you like bonk or hit the wall or run like deplete your glycogen?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
to kind of get into those and like how do you train efficiency and utilize different types of fuel through training, and we could go on for
We
years about
could.
this, I
But
think.
yeah, I mean, this is fascinating. I mean, in terms of just what is even the application to like anybody, right? So what does that
Yeah.
look like? I mean, more movement's better than less, but essentially, like, yeah, does it take your breath away? Is there those types of things where we can uh, use right that real scientific? Because I think my goal would be to start transitioning that into a from data to application, and it's always
Mm.
like here's a question for you: Is there? Do
Yeah.
you feel there's a because I see this all the time in physical therapy. Does it translate across different fields? Is there a gap, right, between research, right? We have researchers doing research versus the
Hmm.
application clinically or pedagogically, whatever logically we want to use. Is there does there seem to be a gap in other ways other than maybe healthcare, physical therapy practice?
Yeah. So if we take like one of the disciplines that I'm a part of, or the fields, is writing studies, and there's a large theoretical component to that and a research arm of it, as there is in applied linguistics as well, and there's a teaching side to it. And oftentimes we make this dichotomy between researching and teaching, and sometimes how that gets translated is where you're working. So a institution like the U of A or NAU or ASU are classified as research intensive institutions. They were formerly Research One by the Carnegie Mellon Foundation, and typically these are tenure track jobs where people are getting hired to perform research, right? They're hiring you for your specialization in which you can contribute to the institution, and then maybe you teach a couple of classes training the next generation of doctoral students. On the other end of that, you have people whose primary job is to teach. And I think that the dichotomy or this sort of binary really doesn't do it justice, as I think that if you're only at a teaching institution, with scare quotes, you're going to be a more effective teacher if you know what's going on in your own field. So simply to answer your question, sure. We might call this the theory practice divide, and it exists.
Theory practice. I'm stealing that word, that term now. The theory practice divide. I know it comes a lot in terms of the application of, like we said, some of these interventions, exercise interventions
Hmm.
that we look at, in whether it be kind of like what is the most efficient way to get faster, get stronger, those types of things. And I mean, we look at some of these applications, and it's still sitting in the kind of uh, general application phase where it's not more movement is better, but it's not the most efficient, right? And so
Hmm.
that's one of the things that I've always been pushing for, is kind of like good efficient movements, and that always incorporates like all body motions, right? So not just sitting there isolated exercises, but looking at exercise that might be functional, right? Things that are translatable to your everyday life. What are you doing it for? Ultimately for health, well-being, but is there a translation to improving my quality of life, right?
Mm.
And so yeah, and sometimes I don't know that, and I'm not going to knock on research, but does it catch the nuance of those things, right? The nuance of an individual or a patient that's looking for, and isn't that are always looking for the magic bullet too? I've had a couple of cases there, but
Ah,
it's like they're looking for this like a direct application where it's not going to take as long, but at the same time we have to abide by the laws of physics and nature and all those other things, right?
oh yeah, that's an interesting dynamic or an interesting layer to add on top of that. I think it also exists for us too, but for your side, it kind of sounds like within the practice of physical therapy, like there's a research arm and there's like a clinician or maybe like a practical arm of this. So there exists sort of this gap, but then you also interface with external people or like stakeholders, like your patients,
Yeah.
and they're like, I just want to get better. Like, how do I fix this in a week or in a day or instantly?
My doctor said it's the worst he's ever seen. Fix me. What are you gonna do?
uh,
Yeah, right. So, uh, well, maybe it starts with a little bit of that vocabulary, like we talked about there. Um, it's can you change the mindset first? I would, is there a mindset we can change away from that painful source and then progress from there? It's a we should do a whole we should do put make a list. I want to do one on pain. I want to do
mhm.
one. And I got a lot of soapboxes. If you let me stand on here, we'll talk about pain. We'll talk about the application. Yeah, the application of mobility, how much we should actually be moving, what a good
Mhm.
posture looks like. I think there's a lot of applicable things that like you don't have to go see a professional for, but just in terms of movement might be encouraging.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like one of the ideas that is rolling through my little pea brain right now is it seems like you do a lot of patient education.
You see my eyes? Yes.
Yes.
It's mostly patient education. I call it neuromuscular reeducation. It's patient
Mm.
education. You it's hard to imagine, and you may even like you might come up against a barrier like this too, where
Hmm.
people are like, I can't learn new things, right? It's
Uh,
impossible. After at a certain age, I can't learn new things, and I look at it almost on the opposite way. Like you're making these synapses at a cellular level, right? There's these neurons with these terminal little axes, and just
hmm.
by learning these tasks that you go out and do, these you're growing synapses, right? Your nerve cells don't replicate, but they can draw new connections, and
Hmm.
it's a really fascinating thing to think about. That at a cellular level, what is it to learn, and to say that you're not learning, or to go say you're not allowing this cellular level to make connections, is like, yeah, the only time that stops is when life ends, right? Like
Mm.
those connections are continually made, and so it's a lot of education about the movements that we've adopted, right, and that have been burned into our brain.
Mm-hmm.
If we think about like practice doesn't necessarily make perfect, practice
Mm.
makes permanent, right? Every time you practice something, you're kind of you're digging a deeper well. And so to get out of that routine, it's going to take that much more effort. And so when we deal with cases that, chronic pain,
Mm.
specifically, this is pain that has literally been burned into somebody's brain,
Oof.
and the
Like on
support,
a cellular level,
right,
huh?
right, like,
Wow.
yeah. And so how do you address that is a question.
I think we definitely need to have another episode where we like take a deep dive into this. But like stepping back a little bit, I think that this space of patient education is a very rich spot for taking what we are keeping current with in the research and journals and books and articles and translating that into applicable and actionable things for patients or for students. And it's sort of a similar area or a similar space for me when people tell you I'm too old to learn another language, or I can't, my grammar is horrible. Well, one, that research in second language acquisition (SLA) has shown us that no, actually, it's not too late to learn another language. There are certain advantages that you have if you're learning at a younger age versus at an older age, and there's are advantages that come when you're learning at an older age as well. For the grammar part, I mean, what is grammar? What people conceptualize as grammar is kind of interesting to me. It's often a thing like, oh, like you teach English? I'm like, well, actually, I teach writing, and I make that intentional distinction between English and writing because I think that the English title carries some connotations
Mm,
that seems to trigger this grammar thing.
mm,
Like, if you're communicating to me and I can understand what you're trying to convey to me either in the spoken word or in writing, is grammar really an issue?
yeah, right.
I mean, in some cases, they're in like high stakes scenarios. If you're in a resume or something like that, or a high stakes genre, sure, grammar might carry a little bit more weight. But is it the end all be all? I think it's a part of a bigger picture.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, so we got to make a list. This is going to be good. We got to have some guests on too. We'll pick up some new
Yeah.
guests too. I'm excited to see what we have up in store here for the next future of the Prof Talk After Hours.
Yeah, I mean, you know that I'm completely down and a little bit obsessed now on the whole biomechanics and the biology and the chemistry of running. The how do you produce energy? Like how do you go from like how does your body make ATP? Or like what even is ATP?
Right.
ATP.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get a chemist in here for that. But also, it's when I started to jump into like exercise physiology and starting to understand it under the guise of kinesiology, which is the my undergraduate degree, kinesiology.
Mhm.
Physiology, it was right as, and it's probably a bad example here, but it's right in the time of Lance Armstrong, right? Lance Armstrong was
Ah,
just a beast. We now
yeah.
know why, but he was literally just an engine. And it's kind of interesting because you can calculate so many just basic functions of physics, right? Like
Hmm.
how much power he's creating going up a hill. We know his weight, we know his speed, we know
Hmm.
like the grade of the hill, and you could just these are back of the envelope calculations that you could
Hmm.
do. But at the same time, going to the University of Texas, they're going over there and they're literally just inundating him with the best and newest equipment with VO2 max tests and all this stuff.
Hmm.
So then you have literal literature about how much of an engine, right? Like how powerful this individual is. And so it was a really interesting time for me at that, growing up and learning
Yeah.
about those types of things.
Wow. That's so crazy.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. The articles are there. University of Texas, and Lance Armstrong studies there. I mean, they're some of the most profound in terms of the detail of just the components of what they're measuring, right? Power output, VO2 maxes, lactic acid. They're doing blood draws. They're doing just regularly right on them right there.
Have you ever undergone one of these batteries of tests, or
Yeah, I through academia, and
mhm.
I have done it a couple of times clinically. Obviously, I work in a rehab setting, so it's not a good opportunity to put people through their maximum capacity. But I have completed what is a VO2, which is for people that don't know, your maximum oxygen consumption, your volume of maximum oxygen consumption, which is required, how much, what's your exercise capacity. And so we've done a VO2 max test. There's a number of protocols out there where the gold standard, let's see what the gold standard here is. I don't know that's a metabolic cart. It might be a metabolic cart, or it might be water. What is it? Heavy water?
Oh, where you measure like caloric input output.
Yeah, but I think the most applicable one is usually just a metabolic cart. It measures oxygen intake and how much carbon dioxide is blown off, and so you can get a idea of maximum oxygen consumption as well as work capacity. You could take blood pressure and heart rate at the same time there, and you can see kind of how those chart against the exercise endeavor. And so ultimately it's an exercise to failure type of endeavor where they just increase the intensity until you quit.
And what is the time frame of these tests?
Probably
Generally?
about 20 to, well, I mean, you could probably go upwards of 40 minutes. But
Oof.
again, the idea is you're trying to measure like oxygen capacity, workload before you break them endurance wise, right? So yeah, there's going to be this endurance capacity, local muscular endurance, but you're trying to stay, you're just trying to, if you're trying to get the maximum oxygen consumption, how much can they work? You're probably trying to do it within a bout of time before you get into local muscular fatigue. So yeah, like they'll turn it up fairly quickly. And then the other portion of it is you go to a stage and you stay at that stage for about 3 or 4 minutes, because that's probably how long it takes to normalize. So you'll come up, you come up and then you'll set right at that level, and then they increase the load. And so your body, like metabolically, just kind of oscillates around a set point, and so it kind of bumps up towards that load, and then ultimately they take all those measurements at the 3 or 4 minute mark, and capture that.
That sounds like a very, very intense final
It's fun. It's
3
fun.
to 4 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You're just running all out, or rowing, or cycling all out.
Yeah. Don't quit.
Don't quit. Do I get a beer?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Of course.
Like those people on the sidelines of the marathon.
Yeah. You give you a little. What is it? It's the low calorie one. Get a little Michelob Ultra there for you.
There you go.
Right. Cool. No, this is good.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think we hit it.
I think so too.
Yeah. 43 minutes. All right. So, I'm gonna hit my stop. This has been like a duel. So I'm coming at you live from Arizona Western College Anatomy and Physiology. What's your YouTube page there you got that you're running
I'm
it from?
I'm coming to y'all from Writer's Tears.
Writer's Tears.
These are tears of joy, not of sadness, because writing is hard.
Nice.
Even for your writing teacher.
Nice. So I look forward to doing this again. Maybe we'll have some guests on. We'll have some fun. We'll do some other things. We'll tell some topics. Throw some comments in the comment page if you want. Yeah. Have
Maybe
fun.
we can update some of I don't know. Well, put in the comments or in the description, I guess. Maybe we'll have show notes if this goes to podcast.
Yeah. Right.
Or maybe some of those resources about. Lance Armstrong being a machine.
Yeah.
And the VO2 tests and
all
lactic
that fun
tests
stuff.
and all that fun.
Hit me up. Whatever. Sean.Clavell, Gmail. Look at my webpage. Who knows? I'm everywhere. find me.
There you go.
All
All
right.
right, Chell.
Hey, man. Thank you again. We'll do this again soon.
Yeah, thank you. Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Have a good evening, man.
Yep.